All right, so um, I'm back. Uh, I took a little bit of leave of absence. I really just started, and um, I, I never really have like an exact plan. It's not very structured, especially early on with this show. But what I will say is that my last one, episode 4, again, no, I don't think literally anyone's listened to it. I can't even find where this is being uploaded to. I try to upload it to podcasts for Spotify, and when I try to go to Spotify to find the shows, I can't find them. So I don't think anyone's listened to a show yet. Um, but my last show was ruined. The audio was ruined. Something happened when I was kind of rushing to start. Not even rushing, I just was careless to really look at all the settings. So, this mic that I have here, it's not the highest quality, but for some reason, the computer it selected the computer mic. So it was uploaded with that audio, and it was just awful. Like it sounds like I'm in a freaking toilet bowl the whole time. And most of what was said is very much like undistinguishable. And I tried to clean up the audio with the program. It was like the first time I spent any time trying to edit it, and no matter what I did, it just sounded like garbage. So I uploaded it anyway. And the premise really of the show is like it's way out there. My last name's Calloway. I feel like I'm a very out there kind of person. I'm certainly dead set on certain things. Sort of, like I have convictions, right? I have beliefs that are more solid than others. But when it really comes down to it, I don't think people can really have any level of certainty of almost anything when it comes to the grand scheme of things. So things might be true now and they might be true for the past. But as we move towards a different future, like things are going to change. Like science will change. We'll learn more. We will discover new things, and the ideas of old are going to begin to change. And then when you extrapolate that idea into, when it comes down to the individual and like trying to tell other people what is like fact and what's the best thing to do, yeah, I mean, it gets really unreliable because I'm in the camp that people are very different individuals, and depending on our environment, our genetic makeup, our experiences, um, it's hard to say like this is going to work for you. Period. I'm not one to say this is what you need to do. I'm more in the camp of saying, hey, this is something that I've read a lot from people that have far more success from me. Um, some of the things that I began to adopt and apply to my life, and it's worked really well for me. I encourage people to seek out this kind of knowledge, question things, try it out. Action is, probably the most crucial step to get anything that you want done. Because if without action, all the rest of it is just nonsense. It's all hypothetical. It's all completely in your head and nonsensical. So you need to take action to a certain degree to have anything accomplished. Um, what else? So yeah, so I don't think um there's a one way fix all or one way to go about anything really. There are right answers out there and wrong answers depending on the topic. So a lot of times you'll hear me saying it depends. And we can kind of go down those rabbit holes and really flesh it out more. Um, but even this behind me, you can see it's like astrology based. I'm not huge into astrology. I'm an Aries, and I happen to fit a lot of those traits, a lot of like fiery passion, kind of stubbornness, at times. I try to combat some of those. I don't know if it's coincidental. I'm not saying astrology is real. I'm not saying it's fake. I'm very much in the camp of like, yeah, maybe, man. Like, no one really knows with any level of certainty. Like, I personally feel that there is a God. I'm not atheistic at all. I very much believe there's a God out there, a greater power than us. Um, I don't really know too much about numerology. I don't know too much about astrology. I don't know too much about um, lots of stuff. And something I heard the other day, that's like it's almost frightening, but it's almost comforting in that no matter like whoever the smartest, most knowledgeable person on the planet is, they're going to know less than 1% of the knowledge there is to know. You know, there's no way for any one person to know everything at all. That's God. All right. And I think there's a God. I think there's something greater than us. I've experienced and felt things personally that I'm sure I'll share over time with the show that make me feel like that is an undeniable truth from where I'm sitting. And other people can feel differently. Other people can think that there's nothing greater happening. I'd honestly like to talk to people more about that, how they can view the world that way and think like, it's all super random. There's no purpose, no intention. We're just this cluster of energy floating through the universe and it all is just kind of going and there's no relevance, there's no importance. Like I I don't see the value in viewing the world that way. Um, and it doesn't make sense to me at all that it's all just completely random based on what I've experienced in my own life. So I'm not one to say, this is it, this is the way about things with 100% certainty. I will tell you what I think. A lot of the things that I've thought over the past changed with time. I really spent a lot of time over the last 4 years to kind of like solidify the things that I think are going to help me um, in my life and also that I hope can help others. And all I can really do is share my experiences and what I think about things. If people want to, people will um, scrutinize that. Sorry, I think I lost some internet maybe. It doesn't matter what I say or believe. No matter what that is, there's going to be people that agree and there's going to be people that disagree. So I used to people please a lot, trying to, make friends, fit in, things of that nature. And I don't want to do that anymore. I've really stopped doing that as much as possible. And I want to be more true to myself and share completely honestly all the time. And that's risky. If you're trying to be an honest person and say the things that you've done and experienced, like it's very risky. People will use that against you. So you need to be careful. You can never be too careful about stuff because there's bad people out there and they there's bad people out there that want to control people. They want to hold power. They want to manipulate people. They want to keep people down. It would be incredibly naive to think that there aren't those things out there. There's plenty of evidence to know that there are bad people and bad things happen on this planet. So, man, I could just kind of keep going. I can just my mind goes. I don't know if I have ADD or not. I personally think I'm on the spectrum, which I didn't know and even consider till I was maybe 25 or 26 years old. But now, having spent time in that community, talking to other people, sharing ideas, and seeing things that are very common for them, a lot of stuff in my life started to make sense. And the way that I just go on tangents all the time, that it seems very ADD or ADHD, a AUDHD, since I'm autistic, I believe. Um, and so it seems like I could just keep going and going and going sometimes talking about different things. And it's kind of hard to make sense of it all sometimes. So this shows as much for me as it is for anybody else. But it's called Way Out There because I'm just talking about the things that I believe and I think. And honestly, I do want them to be challenged. And I think that when people don't want their ideas to be challenged, they want to silence people or start immediately insulting and attacking people for having a difference in ideas. Um, it makes me feel like their ideas, um, they can't defend them. If you don't wanna even consider what someone else has to say or think about something without attacking them or silencing them, then, like, your conviction in what you believe isn't that strong in my opinion. And I am the type of person that, like, I'm really not afraid to think about anything, wonder anything, ask any question, um, especially in a format like this. A lot of times in growing up Christian, there are people in the church and other Christians. This has happened to me so many times where I ask a question and it jeopardizes some people's faith. And they say, you shouldn't ask that question. And really, anytime someone says, you shouldn't ask that, you shouldn't think that, I just immediately distance myself from that person. If they don't want to think about it, they don't want to question it, that's fine. But to tell me I can't question that or I shouldn't think that is just ridiculous to me. I want to kind of go back because again, I could just keep going on that school of thought, but I hopefully I'll kind of come back to some of those things. Um, the last episode I did, so I've done an intro episode, I've done 3 episodes that are more along the lines of like the stuff I'm talking about now, and then episode 4 is when I had pretty much finished Outwitting the Devil. I've now since listened to the audiobook like 30 times. That might be a little bit of an exaggeration, but literally at least 20. I was listening to it every single day when I was working out, over and over and over again to really make sure that I was grasping what was written in that book. And it's interesting because I talked about how the audio just got jacked for that. And when I found that out and tried to upload the episode, I at first was like, oh, this is a lesson for me because I'm very much about personal accountability. I try to do that as much as possible. I think that's far more useful than putting blame on other people. And that's also not to invalidate the struggles that people go through. We all go through struggles. They're all very real to us. Some struggles can be seen as more difficult than others. We all have different privileges that we will not understand from one another because we haven't lived the lives of other people. We've only lived our life through our lens and our experiences. So I never want people will, but I never want people to mistake what I'm saying to try to invalidate. Like I don't want to invalidate. Everyone deserves love. Everyone deserves understanding. Everyone deserves compassion, um, respect. Those are the things that people I think deserve and want at a base level. They want to feel valued. They want to feel heard. They want to feel seen. Um, they want to be validated. But at the end of the day, like you need to do that for yourself. You can't expect other people to validate for you. You can't expect anyone to do anything. All right, that's unrealistic. I at some point I'm probably going to pull up the 4 agreements because that's been a common theme over the last week for me. I've seen a lot of those 4 agreements come up. I usually cannot remember all of them off the top of the head, but I know one is keep your word impeccable. That's like don't lie. If you say you're going to do something, do it. Try not to curse people. Things of that nature is keeping your word impeccable. Don't make assumptions. So don't assume you know something in a situation. It's really not going to play out in your favor. Um, you're doing a disservice to the person you're assuming things of. You're breaking down like a communication that could be had. You're just assuming and foregoing that communication because you think you know better and can assume all you need to assume from one sentence, one interaction. You can obviously gain um, more and more like validity to your assumption over time through your experiences, but especially just assuming anything instead of knowing actually exactly what happened, it's not beneficial to you. And I agree with that. So keep your word impeccable. Don't make assumptions. Um, try your best. I know is one, and then the fourth one, it's not. I want to say it's something like basically don't be bothered about what other people think about you. I'm gonna look it up real quick. Actually, it's something along the lines of that. Um, let's see here. Let's see here. Yeah, don't take anything personally, right? And that's very all things, literally all things are easier said than done. And that goes back to the action I was talking about earlier. It's way easier to just say something than it is to actually carry it out and do it. Um, but when you take something personally from someone else that they try to put on you, you validate it, right? So when people get really upset when someone says something to them, it's almost like you're giving them validity to what they just said because you're reacting. It's hitting a chord, it's striking a chord with you. So instead of letting yourself get very upset and reacting very emotionally, um, angrily, with transgression, whatever it may be, whatever emotion that their assumption on you elicits, you like try not to do that. When you notice you're trying to do that, like when you notice you are doing that, like slow down for a second, feel that emotion, think about what's going on, and understand that most of the time, if not always, when someone treats you poorly or says something like that, it's not a reflection of what you did. It's usually a reflection of themselves. Not always. Sometimes you hurt people and you kind of deserve what's coming your way. But if somebody just treats you really poorly and you're like, what the heck is going on? That person's probably got a lot of stuff going on in their life that they're not coping with, and they're looking for a target to take it out on. I experienced that so much when I worked at Lifetime at the front desk, of people that you can just tell, man, when you see the same people, the same things every day, you start to really pick up on some patterns of human nature. And that's really where that clicked for me. Outside of reading the Four Agreements, which is a short, good book. It's got some, like, those Four Agreements are a solid set of good ideas that I think generally will help most people live a better life if they can adopt them to a way that serves them. Um, so, um, you start to see that you greet somebody and you try to do everything nice and right, and they still are just angry and bitter, and they do stuff that try to hurt you, and it's like, you didn't do anything wrong. So when they come for you like that, if you get all upset and give it back, not only are you just adding to that negative energy, you're breaking down your own energy. You're letting them into your space and affect your vibrations, but you're also giving validity to the things they say instead of just shrugging it off, and saying, that's okay. This person's having a tough time, and they're gonna feel and say whatever they're gonna say. It's out of my control. I can only control myself and how I respond to this. Um, so again, the tangents will be unreal on the show, especially while I'm doing it solo. I do at some point want to start bringing on guests, whether it's just friends or, eventually working up to a point where I have people that, I'm kind of like, they're far more successful and have done more than me. And if I can get them onto the show, I, I think there's enough podcasts out there, not anything against those podcasts, like the Chris Williamson podcast. I forget. It's Modern Thinking or something like that. I always forget the name of his actual show, but his show's great. Joe Rogan does this where he brings on experts and they talk about what the expert, they talk about all kinds of stuff, but often it's like more in the realm of what that expert or person and their experiences are. And I think, you know, probably selfishly, I want to bring them on and I want to talk about the things that I think and kind of see what they think about them. And then we can either debate, agree, disagree, and just kind of just go back and forth. And I'm very curious to see what they think about some of the things that I would like to advocate for. So that's kind of more the idea of where the show's going to go. And with that, I'll kind of loop it back in because I thought it was me trying to be accountable and that I was careless, that the audio was ruined. It's also wild when you understand and have read what outwitting the devil is. The devil does not want the information in this book to get out. He does not want it to get out. In the book, he tells Napoleon Hill, "You're not going to publish this And this book was written in 1938. It was not published well after Napoleon Hill's death until 2011. So it not only was he right in the book that Napoleon's not going to do this because the world's not ready for it, it's going to destroy, it's going to ruin you. Um, I think it was completely right. And people can say that it was all intentional on Napoleon Hill's part. Um, Again, anyone can form whatever the opinion they want as long I there's no parameters to that. I was going to say as long as it's your own opinion, but whatever you want to form, how you want to form it, that's fine. I would say that it's important to think for yourself and come to your own conclusions, not to take my word for it, not to take anyone's word for it, but really go do the due diligence to disagree and form an opinion of your own. I understand that there's a time constraint. Not everyone has time to go down. Like I just said, 99% of knowledge for an individual is going to be out of reach. But if it's something that you really want to speak with any authority and confidence on and not come off like a fool, I recommend you go really look into it. Like read the whole book, listen to the audiobook multiple times. So until someone else has read it as much as I have, and they want to try to discredit or say like, "Oh, that's all fake," or Napoleon said that, like, go ahead, have that opinion on it. But I think, based on everything, the way I see it, and how it's been presented to me, that Napoleon legitimately conjured the devil up and interviewed him, and then the devil gave us secrets of how he manipulates, uses us, controls us, and tries to ruin us here on Earth. I don't think it was some intuition that Napoleon Hill had and pretended that he was the devil and said this stuff. I think he really conjured up some sort of evil that told us this is how I do what I do and how I turn the world to ruin. And when you look at everything, at least for me, when you look at everything that's been presented, how it was, the timelines, again, written in 1938, it would be just as impossible to believe that Napoleon Hill was able to understand this stuff and predict this stuff and see this all happen, unfold, because let me tell you, it's unfolding exactly as it was written in the book. There's evidence of it absolutely everywhere. It is it is it's chilling, it can be terrifying. I try to be very careful of the word fear because that's a big part of the book as well in Napoleon Hill's work of outwitting the six ghosts of fear. Let me think. It's the fear of poverty, the fear of old age, the fear of criticism, the fear of loss of love, the fear of death. Uh, Jesus, I was literally not even being present right there. Criticism, poverty, fear of death, um, old age, loss of love. Oh boy. Oh boy. I'm gonna smack myself. Illness. Fear of illness. So the devil gets into our minds through fear. I've been very active on Threads, and that's why I'm right back on the podcast now and kind of back on my track because I'm having a lot of really like interesting conversations with people on there. It's very interactive, far more interactive than Twitter, and I feel like you can kind of build a community and find your little tribe or niche, and also have a lot of your ideas challenged by people. So that's perfect for me and what I'm looking to do. Um, but this lady, she posted about, it's nonsense. Fear is not a bad thing and stuff like that. Like people that say that you not to have any fear. Um, Obviously you're gonna have some fear, right? It's just I think what Napoleon's saying and what I'm trying to say as well is that you can't let that stuff dominate you. A big part of anxiety is kind of fearing and worrying about what's to come. Um, and when it gets really bad, then you start worrying about like all the worst case scenarios that might happen. And the reality is like most of them aren't going to happen. So it's like this intuition or sense that people have that like, all these negative outcomes could happen. And people that are really high anxiety, they're hyper focused on all the negative outcomes that could happen. And for me, the way that I stop anxiety in its tracks is trying to say, okay, hold on a second. You're thinking like your brain's going a million miles a second. Just relax, breathe. What can you do right now? What can you control as Matthew Calloway to just set yourself up for a better tomorrow? What can you do today to have a better tomorrow? And that helps a lot. It helps me just take care of the things that, you know, I need to take care of and can take care of. And it it prevents me from getting very consumed in all the things that could go wrong or could be in my way. I don't want to spend I don't want to spend an immense amount of time thinking about all the things that could go wrong because most of them aren't going to happen, So it's like just being in the moment has helped me immensely. Um, but anyway, so I thought I thought, oh, I'm going to use this lesson to sorry, I'm going back to the last episode just being destroyed as far as the audio quality. And at the time, it felt like, I even started to record this episode 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I stopped because originally I was thinking, yeah, that, I was careless and blah, 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 blah. But since then, it's actually like, hmm, I think that was supposed to happen because I don't think all the stuff that you said in that episode and everything that you want to talk about this book, it's not time yet, and it's not time yet. I think this book's incredibly important. I encourage everybody to go read it or listen to the audiobook and do what you want with it because I say it's not ready for me to share because I'm not ready or in a place that I'm going to be able to really do the things that I want to do to help change the world from it. But I can talk about just the things that I want to talk about and stand up for the things I believe in and share it and be as honest as possible and allow people to form their opinions on it and try to converse as calmly, rationally, um, with kindness in mind, try not to attack people for their beliefs. I'm not perfect by any stretch of imagination. Like I know more than anybody else how awful I can be. I've done awful things. I've thought awful things. Um, I will continue to do those awful things and think those awful things here and there. I'm starting to become a much, much better person in the framework of what I think being a good person is. And that's really all I can try to do. I'm going to be a work in progress my whole life. There's never going to be a point in time where I'm like, I made it. I'm exactly where I need to be. I'm perfect and I've achieved everything I want and no one can tell me what to do because I'm at the top. I don't think that's a thing for anybody. I mean, the closest thing would be becoming enlightened, whatever that exactly means. It means different things to different people. But for me, I'm always going to be striving to improve, learn, and just do more, be better. And that's really kind of my goal in life is I want to change the world and I want to help people because I think It's not that I think people need help. People, of course, people need help, but I can't help everybody that needs help. I can only help people that want my help. Like, you ultimately have to want help. You have to want to change. And if somebody doesn't want your help and they don't want to listen to you, like, it's just a complete waste of time, a disservice to yourself, and it's probably going to piss them off and be a disservice to that person if you just try to force your opinion on them. So I don't want to, you know, when I'm acting consciously, I will refrain from doing that as much as possible. Um, and I really want to try to accumulate a sizable amount of wealth and a platform that I can reach a greater amount of people and address the things that I think really need help. It's in this book already. It's something I posted on Threads about the things that um, that would be good thing to do with wealth. Like, another good book is Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker, I want to say. And they cover the concept in there that a lot of us have these deeply rooted and ingrained ideas that money and fame and wealth is and success is bad, and that you have to be a bad person and keep people down, cheat people in order to accumulate that wealth. And that's just not true. You don't have to do anything bad and you can still achieve wealth. If you're helping people and providing a service and changing people's lives, it's okay to take money for it. And the idea and the concept that I think is really important to take away from that book is the idea that, there's bad people and there's good people. And money is more of like an amplifier than it is bad in itself. So if you're a bad person, without money, you hurt people, you lie, you cheat, you steal, and you get money by lying, cheating, stealing, you're going to do more and more of that. You're going to continue to manipulate and hurt people to a greater degree because you have more money, power, and influence to do so. Conversely, if you are a really good person, you're kind, you're understanding, you're loving, you're helpful, and you do all that stuff before money, when you get money and more power in a platform, you can do more good with it. So that's going to be my mission in life. I want people to hold me accountable to make sure that I am I am helping people with my money. I never lose sight of who I am and where I came from and the things that got me to that wealth. I'll be tested many, many times over. And I pray, I think about, hey, please keep me on the right path. Keep me doing these things for the right reasons and don't let me lose sight of what is just. So, that's what I want to do. I want to make travel easier for people. Um, I want to make it safer travel, safer, easier, and more affordable. I want to, try to help homeless people, get them back on their feet. I want to try to end hunger. I really think, I'll come off as really idealistic to a lot of people, or naive, and people will say, that's ridiculous and blah, blah, blah. I've been the other side too. I've been completely nihilistic and said that nothing matters. Everything sucks, like, fuck the world. No one cares. I've been there. I've 100% been there. And I will tell you, my life was compounding and getting far worse day by day by day with that mentality. And I did that for so long, long enough, let's say, not so long, it's, very relative, but I did it long enough that it got me in a hole that I'm still climbing out of, but I'm able to climb out of it because I have these more idealistic beliefs now that I hold to be true and more important and reasonable and also helpful to me. They serve me to have these idealistic ideas. Um, I'm not wearing I'm wearing a Packer shirt right now, but I've said this before. I'll say it again. I'm a big anime guy. I really love these Japanese comics and the stories that come from them. Their storytelling, I think, is phenomenal. Stories like Naruto and One Piece, they're so long. There's not really, outside of like maybe The Simpsons or something like that, there's not really too many stories that have just been going for that whole length of time. And Simpsons is awesome. It's really funny. It has a lot of relevant things. It's interesting that they seem to predict the future a lot. But I would say that like Naruto and One Piece, it's like these long sagas that I don't really know how the mangakas do it. Ichiro Oda, he wrote One Piece. Um, it's still going. I've watched this when I was a little kid, like, 5, 6, 7 years old or something like that. It's been going for like 25 years. And I kind of went away from it because it kind of went off TV, and I didn't read manga when I was younger, but I got back into anime a little bit in college, and I rediscovered One Piece, and I watched all the shows in English, and then I watched ahead to all the shows in subtitled. Um, and then I read all the manga that was out because the manga is the farthest along the storyline, and then the subtitle is a little bit farther along than the English. So I've seen the show through a few times. I've read it through a couple times, and it's still going. But the reason I bring that stuff up is because the main characters in these, particularly in Naruto and One Piece, Naruto and Luffy, they have the biggest dreams that everyone laughs at. Everybody laughs at them. So Naruto says, "I'm going to be the next Hokage." And anyone that knows the story, like truly knows the story, Naruto, and to give everyone else a little background, he grew up basically an orphan in a village with a demon inside him, a literal demon, the nine-tailed fox. And everyone completely chastised, isolated, hated, made fun of this poor kid, and you learn more and more about him and his story throughout, and it's quite powerful. But his undying delusional belief in himself that he's going to be the next Hokage, which would be the equivalent of being the president of the United States in this ninja anime, for him to say that and believe that, like, that's one of the most ridiculous things that someone could dream to do. And spoiler alert for anybody, he became the Hokage eventually, and he told everybody, said it all the time, and everyone laughed at him. Luffy, same thing. I'm going to be king of the pirates. Everyone laughed. What's this 16, 17-year-old boy? What is he talking about? He doesn't know anything. He has no idea the dangers in the world. What he did know is that he had a dream, he had a goal, and he was going to do anything in his power to get there. And they also knew they needed help. So I have a goal to change the world. I know I can't do it alone, but I am delusional in my belief to make a huge impact on this planet because I think it's really important, and it's what I feel I've been put on this earth to do. If I'm willing to even consider it, then I think it's my responsibility to try and do it. And I think not to say like again, like I don't think I'm like an amazing human by any stretch of imagination. I don't think that. I'm very human, just like everyone else, and I have very real struggles every day. And I don't win every battle, but I think I can really do good for the world, and try to minimize suffering for people without hurting a lot of people along the way. I'm not going to say I'm not going to hurt anyone along the way because there's going to be people that disagree with me on all kinds of topics, and they're going to feel like they're being hurt. And it's not me trying to say I'm more arrogant and I know better and all that, but like all I can do is what I believe and what I thought about, and I do think that I've thought a lot more about some of this stuff than the average person. I think I've I've noticed in my life that for a lot of things I do think about it a lot more in depth. And I think, part of the reason that I think I'm on the spectrum and a neurodivergent is, I think other neurodivergents and people with autism will also kind of resonate with this, but like we tend to over explain everything a lot. We try to be very thorough. And in my life, at least, kind of regardless of how I said everything all the time, people always seem to misunderstand what I'm saying. And the reason I say that is because I'm like puzzled by how they respond to what I said. I'm like, why? Like, what is it that I'm saying that they're taking that away from it rather than what it is that I meant? Like I said all this and then they only took this little tiny part, right? I said this huge thing and they took this from it. And because of that, I've thought immensely about a lot of stuff, you know? Um, so I'm also willing, like, one, I'm willing to say stuff out here online for anybody to completely come through and eviscerate. And I'm willing to tell the truth. I'm capable of telling the truth. And, I want better for everybody. I genuinely do. Not just for me, not for personal gain whatsoever. I'm sure along the way, if I do the right things, I'll get some personal gain and I'll find a way to, you know, to accumulate some wealth and do some stuff. And some people will say that, oh, you're in it for the money. People will say what they're going to say. It's not my responsibility at the end of the day. So, um, this is actually a good segue into some that I've thought for quite some time, but it's come up a lot more recently with my activity on Threads. I had a very long conversation on Threads with somebody that, again, they kind of were just misunderstanding what I was saying, and I think I was probably misunderstanding what they were saying. We were both on the spectrum, and it's kind of like looking at mirror in a mirror a little bit. But a question I have, a thought I have, a sentiment I'd like to convey is that I don't really understand um, why it's the responsibility of the speaker at all times to make sure that everyone listening to the message understands clearly what it is that I mean. I don't think that's a realistic expectation. And we're going to get into more of like, I think that's a huge issue with everything going on. Like, I think people have very unrealistic expectations of what's possible and able to be achieved. And like, I'm saying that as the delusional person that thinks they can change the world. I'm saying people often complain about like, we need to eliminate racism, we need to eliminate sexism, we need to eliminate classism, whatever it may be, like poverty, hunger. We need to eliminate this stuff. It's like, that's a very unrealistic goal if we acknowledge that there's going to be bad people that are always going to be bad people out there. So it's not to take away from anything. That it's not to say that those problems don't exist, but to make them like they're the biggest issue, that it's like really being a huge detriment to everyone's lives, especially in the United States. I mean, for sure in other countries around the world, um, there's going to be much worse situations for people to be in where these are bigger problems. But I really want to more focus on the United States until the United States is in a place where we're again a beacon of freedom, and really a good force for the world, because I don't think we've been that for, maybe, I'm not going to say maybe ever, but like for a long time. Um, so back to my thought where I don't think it should be on the responsibility of the speaker to convey to the audience my intention behind everything so perfectly that no matter who's listening, everyone understands with crystal clarity. That would be an amazing talent. That would be godlike. Someone tell me a single person that exists or has ever existed where they it's so funny, man. I just realized my headphones aren't plugged in, but it's more to reduce echo, so it's okay. Um, I don't think anyone's ever existed in the history of human life that have spoken to a group of people or had a message where everyone completely understood it the way that the person speaking intended. So that is probably one of the most unrealistic expectations. And what I would suggest I'm not just bringing problems to people. I think you should always try to bring a solution as well, propose solutions for people to consider. What seems a lot more reasonable to me would be that the person that's interpreting it doesn't interpret as they see it and they want to, but to ask clarifying questions of, "Hey, is this what you mean? When you said that, do you mean this? It seems like when you said that, like I literally almost never, and I would say maybe once or twice in the 500 to 1,000 conversations I've had on threads in the last month, maybe once or twice, and all the ones I've seen, which would be way more than thousands, maybe once or twice did I ever even see one person do that. And it's like maybe that's why our communication has broken down so badly. Maybe that's why we're so divisive and we lack understanding of one another because it's not even it is the general belief because people are telling me this. I'm not just saying it's the general belief. People are telling me, "No, you have to be more considerate of how what you say is going to be interpreted." And it's like, you're even if I'm the most considerate about it and the most thoughtful about it, like somebody's still going to misinterpret it. Somebody's going to project their reality onto what I said and take away something completely different. They're going to say I said something that I literally don't mean. It happened so many times where they're like, "Oh, so you're saying," like, no, I'm literally not saying that. You're saying I'm saying that, and that's ridiculous because I'm not saying that. It's like the straw man argument, and "Yeah, oh, you're saying that, women shouldn't have any rights." It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, what? How did you draw that conclusion based on what I just said? Like, you just want to say that I think women shouldn't have rights so that you can just throw out everything else I said. And we can't keep doing this. If I mean, we can do whatever, but if we continue to just keep saying, this, I think this is what they meant, and I'm going to go with that rather than say, "Hey, man, it seems like you said this. Is that what you meant?" And try to come to more of an understanding. That seems like a way more realistic expectation and method of communication than to just take things how we decide to interpret them. I really don't understand that. One of the big ideas that I will continue to talk about for quite some time because I think until we flip this, I don't know how long it's been this way. It's someone claimed that they were even taught in debate or speech class that that's how it is, and I think that's different because if you're giving a speech, people can't really ask you those questions directly, right? If there's anywhere from 10. Well, 10, you could probably, like a classroom setting, but like you start getting into 100 and up into the thousands, like there's not going to be a way that someone can actually speak and have their time on stage and everyone be able to like ask them questions to interpret and make sure they're understanding what's being interpreted. So, there's more responsibility on someone giving a speech to a large crowd to try to communicate very clearly and eloquently what it is that they're trying to convey. But when it comes to like back and forth conversation with the average person, or even like you can write comments on stuff and maybe the creator, like if people comment on my stuff, like I will respond to as much as possible, barring people that are blatantly trolling, doing ad hominem attacks, like insulting me, or doing like just blatant straw man attacks. Like I'll try to give everyone a chance, but like I only also have so much time in the day and I'm trying to get a lot of different things done. I just do this in my free time. Another thing I want to say is that all the money that I ever generate in the future from my podcast and YouTube, I'm going to pour it right back into the platform because like the quality of all this stuff, it's not great. It's like, I don't have a studio. I'm in the corner of my apartment with like all subpar equipment. Not subpar. I mean, it's better than just like the default computer equipment. But I want to invest back into it all the time. If I take any profit from it, I swear for my whole life, it'll be less than 10% of all the profit that I take from from that I ever receive from this show. 90 to 95% of it is going to be poured right back into to make it a better product for the viewers. And back to what I was saying earlier, like I will try to respond to as many people as possible to keep the communication going. I don't want to try to stifle communication because people see things differently than I do. But if we're not going to be respectful of one another and we're not going to acknowledge what one of the other says and try to come to some sort of understanding, then I'm probably not going to continue because it's just a waste of time. Like I can't convince people that aren't open to considering alternative views anything. So it's not my job to, it's not my responsibility to, it's not really even possible if they're not open to it. So the people that are open to it and do want to have a conversation and are trying to seek understanding and growth, I'm going to talk to you guys way more. Way more. Um what was it? I just had another thought that's gone. Um hmm, it's been lost on me. There's too many distractions. Someone knocked on my door. I got my phone over here, which I use to look up things during the shows sometimes, but it's getting notifications. I should have put it in do not disturb. Um, yeah, I'm not sure. I'm gonna pause the recording real quick. Ah, I pulled it back. One of my good friends, Pat Cook, and I, we were driving home from my buddy Thomas's house one night, and I said, "Man, don't you just hate it that thing where like you have something you want to say, but then it just goes away. You just can't really remember it. Whether you're like having a conversation with like a room of people, and you don't want to like interject and kind of interrupt, and then it's just not really relevant anymore, or whatever. You just forget." I was like, there should be like a name for that. And he and I were just so good. We're kind of weird dudes, and he was like, "It's the squosha," and we were just goofy about it because squosha, not only is it the place the thought goes, but it's also the act of it, going to that place. So it's like this multifaceted word that's completely goofy. The spelling's horrendous because um we were also trying to be goofy, so we didn't want anyone to steal our word and spell it how it you might think it was going to be spelled. So Squocea, squosha. And it's funny because when you bring it back, it's called a reserosha. Thought I'd share that with the nobody that's watching, but someday maybe people will watch this, and I don't know. I just get a kick out of that. So I was able to reserosha my thought before I paused the show, and I'm not really interested in people that are living in a 2D world. And what I mean by that is people living in a 2D world are people that only see one side of the coin. Okay, they only want to see things how they are looking at it. They only want people to validate what they're feeling, their experiences, when there's always another side to the coin. There's always someone else's perspective, the other half of the story. And again, I it's so rare when you go on social media, any platform, and you go on any platform that is like video content, and you look at the comments, there's literally almost nobody, virtually zero people acknowledge. There's literally almost no one that acknowledges the point at all, without just immediately jumping to, "Oh yeah, well what about?" It's like somebody says, okay, let's try to think of a more concrete example here. Okay. Yeah, let's just go here. Why not? Fuck it. I'm going to stand on my beliefs, and I know I know this is a super hot topic right now, but fuck it. Let's talk about the trans movement, okay? And let's say that somebody is saying that are um trans people are being discriminated against, and it's it's because of people do not respect them, and they're transphobic, and they make them feel like they're not worthy of respect and we invalidate their existence. And then instead of somebody saying, "Yeah, hey, I'm really sorry that does happen." It's unfortunate when there are people that don't come from a place of compassion and understanding that immediately jump to the place of, um, you know, "Oh yeah, well, you think kids should be able to cut off their dicks?" And it's like, "No, I don't think that at all." First off, I'm just trying to paint an example here um, where it's like, instead of acknowledging it, they just start talking about the negative consequences of trans people, which I think needs to happen. But I think it also is important to acknowledge one side or the other, right? It's okay. It's okay to have, it's like a higher level of thinking and consciousness to be able to hold two different things at once in your head and have a conversation about it. So we can acknowledge that trans people have a very difficult life and a lot of people lack understanding and compassion in their situation. And we can also acknowledge that, hey, there's probably some serious consequences to this movement, that are going to start occurring at a much higher rate if we don't talk about them and kind of pump the brakes and really start analyzing what it is that we're advocating for. So I'll be very transparent. That was not intentional to say trans, but I'll be very transparent that, like I think transgender, the idea of that, it's a mental disorder, it's gender dysphoria. It's I think a very small percent of the population truly believes and have always felt that they were supposed to be born a different sex. I I think it's a mental disorder. And I think that it's being pushed and advocated for in a very unhealthy way that's confusing a lot of young children and making them think, I'm trans too. And then instead of like questioning it and trying to understand, we're just being told to go along with it and propagate that delusion. Most of the people today probably are completely delusional about being transgender. Why? I don't know. We can go into that another time. And I really don't want to even go into it too much on this episode. We're almost at an hour, but I just wanted to kind of paint more of a picture where if you are advocating for trans stuff, but you're not willing to talk about the consequences of it, or you only want to talk about the consequences of transgenderism, and pushing for that ideology without acknowledging that there are people that are really suffering, within that community, then you're both living in a 2D world. And we need to stop living in a 2D world because we don't. Look around you. It's three-dimensional. There's another angle, there's another perspective, there's another experience. And it's kind of like ironic and sad to me that people will say, "You're invalidating my experiences," without also acknowledging that by saying that, like, you're invalidating mine. Okay. So, like, when people say that all the time for every little thing, like, you're invalidating this, and like, yeah, because you're trying to tell me that things that have, like, again, there's a lot of different topics. I'm not trying to stick on this one, but when someone tries to tell me that, like, what I've experienced, seen, and felt and heard is less relevant than what you see, think, feel, and believe, then you're invalidating what I think as much as I'm invalidating what you think. And people will be like, well, you're a bigot and you're trying to, basically oppress people. And it's like, no, you don't get to just call everyone a bigot that you disagree with. And you don't get to just say that everyone that has their unique set of experiences, that has some concerns about certain things, is going to be oppressive. This kind of ideologies and terms get just thrown around all the time now. And it's really scary to see. It's very dangerous that people are trying to say, like, limit what people are allowed to say, think, and believe. I think it's really, really dangerous to start walking down that path. Again, it goes back to we're trying to do things that aren't reasonable. It's unreasonable to try to control someone's thought. It's unreasonable to try to control someone's actions. People are going to think, say, and do ultimately what they decide they're going to think, say, and do. So I think it's far more reasonable to try to come to some sort of understanding and actually look at the world around us, the data, the statistics, the science. People say like, "Oh, look at the science." People that say that most of the time don't fucking read the science like at all. They are only looking at the statistics they want to see. I'm pretty sure Bill Gates wrote a book about how to manipulate statistics in your favor, so it's just it's a part of the pie, and we need to be able to have much more of an open conversation that comes at it from every single angle and take it one step at a time, acknowledge something that's valid and said, go through that part of the conversation, and then go to the next part. This is also valid to say that nothing bad could possibly come from allowing kids that are, you know, under 18 years old that don't even remotely have a developed brain, that are very easily influenced, to allow them to permanently mutilate their body in an irreversible way, to say there's going to be zero negative consequences of that. I'm not there with you. No. No, if you want to do whatever you want to do by the time you're 18, the brain's not developed for the average human until they're 25 or 26. Your higher function and level of thinking does not develop till you're in your mid 20s for almost everybody. If you think about a time that you were younger, I'm 29 right now, coming up on 30. If I think about when I was 25, I think, holy shit, man, what was I thinking back then? Thank God I've changed and grown and considered some new things. And I think back to when I was 20, holy shit, man, what was I thinking back then? And it just gets worse the older back you go, man. If you have old content or posts or videos of yourself as a younger kid, like, you cringe at it if you're doing it right. If you're growing and changing as a person, you're like, oh God, I was like that. Like, God, like most people have had that experience at some point in time. And if you don't have any evidence of that, then like go hang out with younger people and see how they act. And you'll be like, God, it's cringy. It's cringy, man. Like, they just don't know anything yet. And it's not because they're stupid, it's because they've been on the earth for such a small amount of time. They don't actually have their own beliefs about things in a real genuine sustainative. I don't know. You know what the word with sustenance. They don't have any sustenance to what they believe. They mostly believe what people tell them they believe. All right. Kids are extremely easily influenced. All right. And whatever we tell them is what they're going to think, because they trust their parents, they trust their teachers, they trust their coaches, the influential people, the older adults in their life. Like, kids are trusting you, and it's our job to steer them down the path of truth and righteousness. And if we just pretend to go along with whatever society says to do without having questions and steering people straight, like, it's not good, man. Like, there's examples of this. Like, you can easily brainwash the youth to do and believe things that are not true. Look at Hitler's youth. All right. Like, pretty much everyone on the planet can acknowledge that genociding a group of people is not okay. But if you raise kids up thinking that a certain group of people are evil and they're the scourge of the earth and they need to be eliminated, then that group of kids is going to think that's what's the right thing to do. And that's a terrifying idea. So if a kid comes up to you and says, I can fly, it's like, no, you fucking can't. Get back in the house, get off the roof. If you jump, you're going to break your fucking legs or worse and die. And yes, I'm drawing a parallel between a kid that is 5 years old going up to mommy and daddy and saying, Mommy, Daddy, I'm actually a girl. No, son, you're fucking not. You're a boy. You have a dick. I don't think that's transphobic or bigoted to say in the slightest. I'm sure other people will. I think it's absolutely disgusting that there's people out there, and oh man, it would piss me off if people said there's no one out there advocating for 5-year-olds to be allowed to go through gender transition therapy. It's like, yes, there fucking are. Yes, there are. You're living under a rock. You don't look into anything. You're not paying attention. In this book, the devil talks about drifting. And he says it's impossible for someone of normal body and sound mind to drift. So, what do we do into our youth? Are we trying to taint their mind, ruin their bodies, keep them confused? This is one of the most basic forms of reality, to say that there are men and there are women. And again, I am not talking about the less than 2% of um, cases in which people are intersex. Okay, that's a different topic. All right. Obviously, if people are going to be more confused about who they might be growing up if they're born with, kind of conflicting features physically, right? And even for most of those cases, they generally lean one way towards the other way more than the other. They're usually leaning a way that, like, the doctor makes a judgment call. And so I'm sure sometimes that makes mistakes and things happen in their brain where they, like, fuck, I thought I everything about me feels like a girl. And even that in itself, just the idea of a boy saying everything about me feels like a girl, it's like, how would you know? Because you're not one. I'm just gonna say this because I'm gonna wrap it up here. I really feel like I could go for a couple hours today because I've had so much going on. So many different ideas. I have a million voice memos recorded. But men and women are different. Okay. And we don't really try to understand one another. We kind of demonize the other group quite often. And the reality is that like, as a man, I will never be able to understand what it's like to be a woman. I can try to listen, I can try to understand, but I won't have grown up as a woman in society and experienced the things that women experience as they experience them ever. So for me to say I understand and I get what you're going through, that's not true. I don't say that. I don't say that kind of stuff. And if I do, then I'm misspeaking. I'm not speaking from the right place when I do say something like that. I've said it in the past, but I don't say that stuff anymore. I do not understand what it's like to be a woman. I do not understand what you're going through. And the same can be said about you and men. You know, there's all kinds of people saying bad things about the opposite gender. America is divided on race, religion, creed, and gender right now. And it's all very intentional. They don't want us working together. They want us separated, divided, and fighting about things that we shouldn't be fighting about. We should be working together. We should be trying to understand. We should be leveraging our differences. Um, we should be glorifying our differences and finding ways to, again, leverage them for a better way forward. And we're not doing that stuff right now. We're not doing that stuff. So I thought I was going to go flip and just only talk about outwitting the devil on this podcast moving forward, but I'm not. I'm going to hold off on that because I have some big plans to try to change the future. But I have a lot of things I've been working on to try to make that more feasible and to be more careful about it. Because if I'm not, then it's not going to work out. So the main reason why I stopped recording podcasts, like, weekly and posting them, was because, here's another moment for me to be very vulnerable and open and honest. I had a steady job. at Lifetime. I worked in the concierge department. I was knocking on the door to be a manager of the department, but I wasn't really getting good opportunities. I wasn't really receiving any explanation as to why I'm not getting the job, like literally nothing valid. Most of the time, I applied maybe to 8 different manager jobs, and for one of them I got interviewed, 2 of them I got interviewed, and one of them I got good feedback. The rest I got 0 feedback or feedback that was complete BS. So, on top of that, I was just taking on debt. It wasn't enough money, not just because it wasn't enough money to survive in the expensive economy, but also because I've made mistakes in my past. I had high credit card debt that was compounding against me. I've made a lot of mistakes, and that's part of why I'm so passionate about trying to share my opinion on things, because I don't want everyone to have to make the same mistakes I did to get to a place that I got to start clawing their way out. If I can give people information that they trust and they want to try before they go down that route to figure it out on their own, which is very painful and difficult, then I believe it's part of my duty to share that stuff. Um, so yeah, so Lifetime, it wasn't paying enough. It wasn't really the timeline the company had for where I wanted to go with the company, and my timeline in my mind were so far off. They had me on like this 5-year plan, and I was like, I can't keep being in the same role for 5 more years. Like that's insane. I can't even be like they want. Sorry, not the same role. That between being a manager and then making it to be a GM and going from there, like they had me on a 5-year plan, and I was like, "That's too far. Like I'm not going to give you guys 5 more years of my life when you guys really aren't giving me anything in return. You guys stop giving me things in return. You kind of halted my growth to the point where like I really can't be here anymore. I can't keep and many other things that I'm not going to get into right now, but I will talk about it again at a different point. I've talked about it in previous episodes as well. So I went from that to trying to take an all commission sales job in the solar industry, and it went very poorly. So I put myself and my family in a very jeopardized position. So for about 6, 7 months, I was working in that industry and basically made $0. And it wasn't for lack of trying. I tried very hard. I researched a lot. It just, there's many signs along the way that like this is not where you're supposed to be. But I'm often somebody that tries to stick in a situation longer than I should to make sure I gave it a fair chance. And I felt I gave it a very fair chance, and that, you know, I was taking enough personal responsibility that I was like, okay, it's time to pivot out of here. But the blessing in disguise was that I met somebody that then got me to where I'm at now. So I worked very hard to get my life license in Arizona, and am now part of WFG, where I really want to help people. You know, I really want to help people take control of their finances and set them up for a better future. I almost got into this industry back when I was in Illinois, and for my priorities were not focused on making that happen. So I just didn't ever pursue it the way that I would have needed to in order to get my license in Illinois. Sorry, I'm still getting over still getting over a rough cold slash flu, maybe COVID, who knows? I didn't get tested for it. And a ruptured eardrum. So I'm still on the up and up from that and trying to get back into all of my good habits and routines day by day. And but anyway, I'm now in this industry, and I think that if you don't know anything about what WFG does, I would encourage you to, you can come and reach out to me. I'm happy to explain some of the stuff that we do, and it's a great opportunity for people to make additional income to what they're already doing, and eventually, if you have ideas to become an entrepreneur and run your own business, that's something that's definitely possible here. Um, a lot of people might call it a MLM or a pyramid scheme or things like that. All I ever say to those people is that, hey, where do you work currently? Do you work for somebody? Okay, is there somebody at the top making a lot of money when you're working really hard and not seeing that much money? Okay, sounds like a pyramid scheme to me. In WFG, you can surpass anybody that brought you into the business. If you work harder, you do more work, and you do a better job, you are going to have more success than them. And that's the kind of organization that I want to be in. I don't want to be somewhere where my growth is not dependent on what I'm putting in and it's stagnant and there are people everywhere in the corporate culture that are trying to stifle your growth and play politics, and it's lacking so much integrity and accountability and merit based reward that I would never want to go back into that kind of like structure of just like grinding to try to promote yourself in the next 30 years, to get to a point where you're actually making like serious income and able to take care of yourself and your family. Like, I'm not interested in that. I'm not trying to knock it for people. It's necessary for the people that are capable of doing that. But the way I am, it's not something that was very conducive to my mental health and what I'm trying to accomplish. So I got out. And a part of what we do is involved with life insurance, and I didn't know anything about life insurance before I first started getting into the industry and interested about it. Obviously, the bare bones of life insurance is that if you have people that you care about and you take care of, what happens to them if something happens to you? God forbid you don't come home one day. Are those people taken care of? Do you have enough money set aside that um, they're going to be able to survive? And the answer for most people is no. So what part of what we do is life insurance, where that's one of the most basic things that you can do with life insurance is take a policy out so that God forbid something happens to you, the people that you love and care about and take care of are going to be taken care of. And then additionally to that, things that people really don't know that I didn't know anything about is that there are a lot of living benefits to life insurance. And it's very important to find moral, ethical agents that really do have your best interest at heart. And hopefully, through conversations, you can tell that you have a good one. They're listening to what you're saying, they're trying to problem solve with you. Um, they're giving you information, they're not telling you what to do. I think those would be good signs of people that have their heart in the right place to really try to help you in your situation. And if you find agents like that, they're going to be able to connect you with insurance companies in the life insurance space that have policies that are going to absolutely change your life. So I'm very happy to be here, and kind of turn over a new leaf and really start working towards something that I believe in. Solar, I think, can be very beneficial to a lot of people. It's going to cut your energy bill. It's going to save you money there, and it's supposedly more sustainable for the planet. But it just didn't work for me for a multitude of reasons. So that's what I've been doing with all my time, is really trying to get my business off the ground for World Financial Group. And my wife is home back in Chicago with my daughter, and they're unfortunately for a family death. So um, I have to work. I have to do certain things because, again, solar put me in a hole. So I've been door dashing, doing all kinds of stuff, and I really want to get back to the show and start talking about the things I believe in are important to me. To upload on Spotify, to start uploading on YouTube, and just make sure it gets out there. Um, where it goes, who knows? But if I don't start and I don't take action, then it's definitely not going anywhere, and nothing's going to be done about it. So I think I'm going to take advantage of the time that I have alone here to make sure I work as much as possible, do as much as I can, so that I'm setting myself up for the days that are tougher and I don't have that time. So thanks so much for anyone that watched this. Thank you for being here. Please leave comments down below about any questions you have. I would love to have conversations with people that are actually willing to have conversations so that we can try to better our challenge our ideas, better our ideas, and find a better way forward. So hope you guys all have an amazing day. Way out there.